So previously, we very briefly looked at configuring the Cintiq to work better with Silo. We changed a few of the buttons, we added in the ability for the middle mouse button to work, and we also added in a quick button toggle just to help hide and show the buttons around the side of the UI. So now we're going to focus more on Silo and add in a few more buttons and configure it just to make our lives a lot easier so that we're also not jumping through menus all the time and also just reducing the amount we have to rely on the keyboard. And for this, you have to sort of think ahead and think, what am I going to be doing and what tools do I need to be instantly available? Now, this course is all about sculpting in Silo, and for this we need to use the paint displacement tools, which, as you can see here, are readily available. But the problem is, we click on that there, and it's not very user friendly. We still have, if we want to configure those, we still have to go into Editors, Brush Editor, and open that up. So we could make that process a little easier. What we also want to do is maybe add in buttons to subdivide and unsubdivide. Again, rather than going into menus or having to take our hands away from the Cintiq and pressing the actual buttons on the keyboard, we're just going to put the buttons up here. So let's add those in, and one other button I want to add in is just to toggle symmetry on and off. But let's just jump in and just start to configure. So in here, in our editors, we can change everything from display, color, buttons, keyboard, mouse settings, but for now we're just going to look at the button settings. If we bring this down here, as we can see, modify is this panel here, manipulator is this panel here, UVs is this panel here, bottom buttons are the buttons along the bottom here. So we don't really need to change any of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new page, like so, and let's call this Paint Tools, just making it easier for us to work with. So let's add a button underneath that. Now at the moment there's no function. We want to anchor it somewhere, so let's put them all at the top here. So let's set that to top middle, and our button appears there. Now we want it to line up with this, and as you can see we have position X and Y, and we can edit these here. But just to make our lives easier, let's click on this modify button here, or one of these should have, where are you? Anyway, one of those has the there we go, tabs. So these three tabs are basically these three tabs here. So we can see the height is 44. So let's just add that in there, minus 44. So that's just lining that up nicely with that. So that's just configuring, that's just a nice way of allowing you to configure the UI exactly where you want and be more precise. We'll leave the X position for now. Let's assign a function. So we know we want this one to open up the brush editor for us. So let's just search down brush editor like so. Now when we click on that, it opens up the brush editor and also enables the paint displacement tool, which is exactly what we want, and that's a lot easier than having to go up into the menus like so. So next, let's add in our symmetry toggle button. So let's add another button. Again, height minus 44. And maybe we want that a little bit closer, so we could just click in here and slide that across. Maybe minus 5. Again, let's assign a function. We want this to be symmetry. Where is it? Symmetry mode toggle. And that's that done. And as you notice here, we can also point these to images. Now these can be images already in Silo, or they can be custom images. So you can draw your own and point them. So you've got an up in image and a down image when the button has been pressed. So all that is configurable too. So let's add another button. This time we're going to add buttons to increase and decrease the subdivisions. So again, let's go to our function and we want to look for subdivide, like so. Again, a height of -44 just to line that up, and then we'll slide it over like so, and then we will add one more unsubdivide, -44, slide that over like so. And again, for these, if you feel free to create your own images, that is absolutely fine. And obviously down here you can save out. If you've spent a lot of time setting up the UI, you can save that out. So let's go back. Now you'll notice, if we close this down, that the buttons have gone. So let's go back to our button settings, go down to our paint tools page here. If we turn on persistent, then they'll be on all the time like so. So now all we've done is we've just quickly added in those few options which will allow us to do things rather than going up through the menus or pressing the keyboard. So if I select the object, we can quickly add a few subdivisions, unsubdivide, like so. We can also enable symmetry mode. So now we can edit each side independently or turn on symmetry mode to model both sides at the same time. And this will be important as we progress through the tutorial. So if we subdivide this a couple of times, we can also quickly open up the brush editor and just start painting straight onto it, that like so, rather than going up through the menus. Now that is just a very basic overview of just adding a few buttons to the UI and just allowing you to just quickly add those tools in just to speed up your own workflow. And obviously you can go into a lot more depth with a UI like this. You can add in lots more buttons, you can add in tabs up here, you can create your own graphics, you can do all sorts. But what I like to do is basically just plan the task that I'm going to do, and in this case we're just going to be painting using the paint displacement tools. So as we progress through the tutorial, we may find that we need a tool more often, and there are times when we have to go down to the keyboard, in which case we'll just add another button up here just to speed up that process. Now what I wanted to do is show you a UI which was created by somebody else, a fellow 3D artist called Glenn Southern. Now he did this quite a while ago, but it's quite a nice UI, and it just demonstrates sort of where you can take this. So if I just quickly bring this up, so as you can see, this is quite different. We have custom graphics down the side here. The colors have been changed, and as you can see, he uses Silo on the Mac, so this is more Mac orientated. And what he's also enabled to do is click on this button here, and it toggles through a few different UI setups. Now at the moment, because this screen's squashed up, some of the buttons are squashed from at the bottom like so. But this just shows you what you can do if you really put your mind to it. I mean, you could take this a lot further, add in a lot more graphics, and just configure the whole look of it, just to get the look that you need, and also to help speed up your workflow or your team's workflow for that matter. Now, looking back at this one, it's quite a basic update. But to be honest, we've spent 5 minutes just throwing in a few quick buttons just to help speed things up further down the line. You can take this a lot further, and like I say, the more you use Silo, particularly if you're using a graphics tablet, the more you'll find that there are keyboard shortcuts which you need to bring onto the screen, or you could tie into the radial menu like so. Perhaps what you want these to be your undo and redo rather than the buttons at the side. It's all about personal preference and just setting it up so that it's comfortable for you to work in. So I think that's enough discussion about the tools that we're using and about configuring them to work better with each other. We've looked at the basics of setting Silo up and the Cintiq up. So what I would suggest you do now is play around with both. Get the Cintiq or your Wacom tablet or whatever tablet you're using, get them both working together and in a way that you're comfortable working with. And then what we'll do in the next lesson is we'll focus then on the sculpting tools in Silo, give you a brief introduction to those before we dive in and start to sculpt our hula girl.